and we pulled off. There was a Love's on the left side of the highway as we were heading south, but I had to cross a bridge, and I hit my brakes to slow down for the bridge, and we just kept moving. And so I just drifted to the right, and we pulled into the sketchiest of sketch truck stop parking lots that was just covered in 4 inches of ice, and slid to a stop and said, guys, this is where we're sleeping tonight.
Welcome to the More Sunsets Please podcast. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live debt-free, sell it all and live small, travel the country full-time, or raising animals and growing your own food as a sustainable family? My name is Kate, and these are just some of the stories of those who have jumped outside the box and living life on their terms. This is More Sunsets Please. Welcome, Lorianne and Weldon, to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Can we start out with, first off, where are you guys right now?
We are in Mississippi. We have some dear road friends who recently, they did not get off the road, but they did buy a house. And we are helping them renovate and modify and partially make sure that the kids who enjoyed road travel and meeting new friends are now off in like a little farming area are not going stir crazy, and that our kids are telling them how awesome this place is. So maybe they'll believe it. So
just maybe.
Yeah.
So you're in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. All right. So where do you plan to head after this?
Well, my company is pondering an acquisition of another company. And if we do that, we'll be heading to the East Coast to work with them a little bit. But eventually this summer, we're working our way back up to Montana. So we keep kind of going in and out of Montana until we have a house. We don't want to winter over there. But yeah, the vision is to make Montana a permanent home eventually.
That's exciting. And why Montana?
Oh, we just fell in love with it. We love the country. We love the area near Glacier National Park and the people. Just all of it.
You're good with the winter?
We can totally handle the winter. Yeah, the between May and October, it's just magic. I mean, when there are 9 million lakes and rivers and hikes and, tons of stuff to do outside that doesn't cost a penny. And we were out on a river at 9 o'clock at night, and there's still sunset and, not even close. And we scare up a black bear, and you're floating down the river, and it's just peaceful. And we're big fans of peaceful, and mountains just speak to us way more than beaches do, and big events and stuff like that. Just fell in love with it.
So who all is a part of the Stowaways?
There's me. Well, I feel like stowing away on this thing a little bit because Lorianne is the one that makes most of it work. We figured this out. We've got 4 children.
We started off traveling with 3. We started off with 2 girls and a boy, and the week that we hit the road, roughly right around that week before, somewhere in there, we found out that we were expecting a 4th. So that we thought might throw a little kink in the plans, but we were committed at that point, so we just had to go for it, and it's worked great. And so now we have a 16-year-old, 13-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
2-year-old. So 2 years. So you've been doing this for 2 years?
Oh no, we've been doing it for
almost 3.
We're up against 3 right away. We sold our house 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago. So there was the renovating part and the waiting on our rig to get out of COVID jail because they shut the factories down right after we sold our house. We had a couple months of homelessness that we dealt with. But when I say homelessness, don't think poverty homelessness. Just we had no place that was ours. And my business partner stepped up and offered us the Class A that was in their driveway that they travel with. The whole U.S. is their Instagram handle. They part-time, full-time, 6 months at a time here and there. And we had a delightful quarantine. Everybody else thinks about the horrible time that was. We had a blast. We were learning about living in an RV that wasn't ours. We played, we sang, we cooked together, we laughed together. We just had a great experience in those 2 months. But anyway, back to who all's in this thing. So the Stowaways, we had a stowaway. So that's kind of one of the parts of the genesis of the name. And it's misspelled on purposely Stogsdals is our last name, and that's too long for any Instagram handle.
Yeah.
So the Stogsdals away became the stowaways, and so all of it kind of worked together to create the handle.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I never knew how you came up with that name, so I love that it literally was your little stowaway.
Yeah,
That's
we
awesome.
when we hit the road, we had a truck that I had just bought in February before we hit the road, and it had 5 seats in it. And we were looking at each other like, what are we going to do with this truck we just bought? And we just customized and put compressors in it,
Oh,
and you know, I don't new headlight. I did all these things that made it the way I wanted it, and we pulled the old Homer Simpson thing. Well, that's a future me problem. Well, let's just deal with it, and we hit the road.
so, and what did future you end up doing?
So, if anybody remembers the Snowmageddon of Texas 2021,
21
yeah.
February.
So when Ella was being born, we realized, well, now it's put up or shut up about future me, and we found a place that did custom work for 4-wheel drives, off roads, trucks, stuff like that, and told them what we wanted. We needed a seat in the front instead of a console, but we wanted to keep all the electronics and all the air conditioner to the back seats. We didn't just want to rip something out and put a bench seat in. And I wanted my air conditioned seats and my heated seats and all that stuff that we had in ours, because ripping all that out was going to decrease the value of the truck. And they said, "Oh, that'll take about 3 days and maybe $1,500." Like, okay, I can work with that.
Yeah, then everything shut down with the ice that came into Texas, and
And they were not honest. So what
they
did it
Oh
wind up
didn't
being?
know
no.
how much it was. I think they didn't know how much it was going to cost them. How I don't remember how long it
It was
was.
5.5 weeks and
About five
Ooh,
thousand dollars.
$5,000. It
whoo,
was
for one seat.
heartbreaking and frustrating to go, "Hey, here's this new baby. Oh, this almost cost as much as delivering you." So we were supposed to leave and go to Arizona and go to spring training and meet her sister. And it ran up to just a mad dash in a week to get out there. We missed Big Bend. We missed going and seeing Alexis Walls and some different ones that we were going to meet along the way. That all just went out the window, and we just went straight out and missed baseball. Got to see her sister, but anyway, that's who we are and who all's with the stowaways. As with anything, comes with loaded questions.
It does. It comes with loaded questions and always loaded costs, right? It's a
You got
big
it.
factor of this life. So you kind of touched a little bit on the name, the start of your name. Let's give a little bit of a background of your story. So
Mhm.
we have a general idea you sold just before everything shut down, but what happened? What even got you onto this to get you to where you are now?
Back story. You followed a blog about a lady that traveled the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, years ago. And it was always fascinating. It was kind of one of those things I will probably never do it, but it's a neat idea.
I mean, they were countries everywhere, and I was always like, "Yeah, that'd be cool. Be able to work from home." At that point, I worked for a pretty big tech company. That was never going to happen. I worked for IBM, and before that, I worked for a cybersecurity company and up with the federal government up in DC. And it was just, yeah, that'd be a dream. Well, then when I bought into a small tech company, working from home and living that life, we were busy. Like we did, even though we didn't live like everybody else, we did what everybody else did. Coaching soccer and in leagues, and going to co-ops and president of this board, and so we were busy. And at one time, I really had a heart and a drive to be a part of the community that I was in. It was a homeschool soccer sports um, thing that started off me being the web developer, even though I'm not a web developer. Their website was terrible. So I was like, I could fix that, to helping one of the coaches, to him leaving and me finding out a week before the season started I was going to be the head coach, to coaching 2 teams, to being the athletic director for 5 teams from Pee Wee all the way up to varsity. And I loved the community. They were fantastic. But I was watching my kids age in front of my eyes with not a lot of one-on-one time and just being busy. And she was exhausted and looking at each other going, we're surviving this. Well, one day I was drinking coffee, scrolling through Instagram, and came across a picture of the Wanderpreneurs working in the Tetons on what's now called Upper View. And I just went, why can't I do that? I had this little moment. I look at her, why can't we do that? And she didn't have a good answer. So what was the next thing we did? We walked through the house.
So we walked through the house thinking, okay, if we did this, like what would this look like? What would we need to do? What would we want to keep out of our house? Like what is that going to look like a storage unit? And we came up with like 4 or 5 big items, like a piano that was his grandmother's, things like that, but only 4 or 5 out of our, 4-bedroom house that we really couldn't say goodbye to. And so it made us realize that we're not really attached to our stuff that much. We have all this stuff, but if it was gone, we wouldn't be sad.
So then we started a journey and it was exhausting. I am a stickler for details. I work really hard at creating and curating experiences and stuff like that. And so I wanted whoever was going to buy this house to get a gem. We had worked hard on it on things. We had some built-ins. I'd built some furniture for the kids. I'd built stuff around. So I was already a little bit handy, but I went into overdrive, still coaching soccer. And the number of times I caught myself over the following 8 months going, and just keep, and then lean in and keep going, but we made this mad dash, and I won't say the numbers, but the real estate agents were saying, hey, you probably need to sell for X. And me going, I think X plus 60 is a good start. And they're like, and we got it because someone was going to fall in love with what we had done. And they wanted it for the same reason we had done what we did. So we sold the house, and I had researched, and we bought the rig, and then it shut down in that previous story. But yeah, that was the genesis of why can't we. I went into our last soccer board meeting, and at the end of my little presentation, of talking to the board, there was a picture of a RV in front of a lake, and goes, by the way, y'all need a new coach, president, manager, web developer, because this is going to be us next year. And they're like, what?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Now, where did you guys launch from?
We launched from Richmond, Virginia, where she grew up. We had family and friends there, bit of a community, had a delightful neighborhood of people we just loved. But it was the people we loved were older, and they were aging out or passing away. And we didn't want to be there for the next round of building it back up. We knew that part. It was a good place. I don't want to run off too much of your audience, but those people lost their minds, and we wanted no part of that.
Yeah. Hey, I was going to ask because that would have been a good solidifying factor of it's time to go. Because you guys decided right at that time. So that was kind of perfect.
I remember we were on a walk when we were staying at my business partner's place and kind of going, do we want to do this right now? Because it was going to be hard. We knew that. But I think staying was going to be harder. And we looked at each other and we're like, we didn't have the rig. We didn't know where the rig was. It was missing in action. The factory didn't know where it was. There was like one person at the factory. And I worked my tail off to get it out of the factory, out of paint, into the final pieces, and, brought somebody in just because it was near the end. And they got it to us. Like, look, if you can get down to your spot on April 30th and sign the paperwork, we'll move heaven and earth to get it there, because we wanted it by the end of the month. And like, game on, brother, let's do it.
Yeah, just a moment of, well, we sold everything. We're kind of, we're committed to doing this, but at the same time, with everything that's going on, we could probably get out of buying our rig. And like, is this the right thing to do right now with everything shutting down? We didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know if it was actually a serious thing. We didn't know if it was like, how much is the whole world going to be shut down, and we're going to be trying to travel through this.
Well, and my business, how many of my customers am I going to lose? And am I going to be able to pay for this thing? And we stepped out on faith. One of our big missions in life is, like a lot of people the last couple of years, look, we don't live in fear. That's not what we're called to. And we're just going to lean in. Our other line, there's different ways of saying this, and ours borders on maybe not being as eloquent. The Van Dynes, if you ever get a chance to interview them, they're great family. The Narrow Road family is, okay, we do hard things. Well, ours is lean into the suck. It's like when it's going to be hard, lean into it. Like when we coached our
Yeah.
soccer team, the last game one year kept getting rained out, kept getting pushed. And we're talking early November in Virginia. It's wet, it's cold.
Oh,
And a lot of the guys punched out. So I had mostly my girls and like one or two guys. And I said, look, guys, this is going to be your favorite game. It's miserable. Miserable. It's going to get dark. It's cold.
yeah.
It's wet. I'm talking 38, 39 degrees and shorts and t-shirts and stuff like that. And I said, but let me tell you, you guys, there's something about shared misery that you guys are
Yeah.
going to love this game. And you ask any one of the kids that played that game, it's the favorite game they ever played. And so
Oh,
we're big
wow.
believers in that. And choosing joy. So we did. We launched. We went. And man, I really think that's one of the ways we kept our sanity during that time, because we found people just like us. And I don't mean like I need self-fulfilling, pats on the back and all that, but to realize you're not nuts. That
Mhm.
really the common sense is in the people who were nuts. The people that we had served and served and served, we found out real fast weren't our people. We thought they
Mm-mm.
were, and some of them were, but the people that are our people, and this will get deeper into later in the interview, I'm sure, but I can't be the guy with a bunch of moms. I need
Mm.
dudes in my life. I mean, when I say dudes, I mean dudes, who, and I don't mean that toxic, whatever you want to say. I mean guys who are serious about their faith, serious about leading
Yeah.
their families, serious about doing the hard thing, not fearful, but kind, a servant's heart. I need dudes who do the hard thing, not because they're going to get a payoff. And I
Yeah.
need them in my life. And I've found a bunch of them. So
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, I think part of us like going ahead and going for it, and well, let's just do it. Let's see what happens, basically. But we kind of approach most things in life with it'll all work out. One way or another, it's going to work out, and it might not be easy along the way, but it will work out.
Yeah.
we have a line in one of our what's the word I'm looking for? Bio. You know, I come up with the ideas. Lorianne finds ways to make them work. So we work really, really well together. It was not a we've seen people in the RV life that didn't last super long, and it was not truly a team. That's a big
Mm.
part of our vision. Is it's never us versus each other. It's us versus whatever, and
Yeah.
that's a big part of us making that decision to launch and go. We're going to make this work out.
Yeah. Because you have to be a team in this. You have to. You don't survive this without being a team.
You
They're
really
definitely
don't.
the ones who get off the road either real fast or they get off the road
Separately.
in a not so pretty way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it's true. I also really like that you said, just it'll all work out. That no matter what it is, it's going to work out. And we're very much the same. That it's going to work out, whether it's what we thought is going to happen or what was supposed to happen, which may not have been
mm-hmm.
what we wanted or planned for, but it feels right that we know this is where we're supposed to be. So I
So
like that.
I read a book, a business book. It was. Do you know who Phil Vischer is?
No.
So he wrote Veggie Tales. If your kids ever
Oh,
watched Veggie Tales growing up, so
yes. I didn't know that.
well,
The name didn't ring a bell.
a lot of people don't realize he lost that business.
Really?
He that business grew. His vision. If you asked him, I'm going to ruin the book for people who are going to read it, but his vision was to be the Christian Walt Disney. I mean, he wanted a whole business around creating content and a theme park and a really cool place. And they built this building and all this was just growing and growing, and it imploded. They they
Yeah.
couldn't make payroll, and they had to sell out for pennies on the dollar in bankruptcy, and he just crushed and fell. And in his like post mortem,
Mm.
he took some time just to be with God. And then before long, he started getting the creative juices flowing. And if you ever know what's in the Bible and stuff like that, that he did post, he's met with some people who are going to help get his content out there, and lawyers and bankers, and they get together in the boardroom and the whiteboard, and they say, "Where do you want to be in 5 years?" And he said, "You know what? In the center of God's will."
Yeah.
That's my vision now. Not what I want, but there. And so that's kind of us. Like, we're going to make it all work out, but that's really the direction we're going with this. And if that's the focus, we're going to be okay. That's why it's going to work out.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, the forethought is amazing of like, hey, I'm going to plan this and this and this. I'd love to do all these things. I want to have all these checklists done. But if they don't, then what the checklist was is fine. That wasn't meant to be. That wasn't meant to be our story. And it's what gets us through.
Yeah, well, they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
I know. Because this is totally like side note. But for us, it's like we're 2 years in now. And I did not anticipate living in a travel trailer, all 5 of us plus the dogs, for 2 years.
Right.
I never would have imagined this. We thought 6 months tops.
Right.
And here we are.
Yeah, we didn't think 3 years. We thought, man, 12 months to 18 months, maybe on a stretch 2 years. We might be going into year 4.
Right.
I mean, we want to buy land, but I kind of want to see the market crash because I know it's coming. I want to wait for the market to crash. We're fine. We're around people we love on a frequent basis. We got access to what we need. Do we want to be in a house right now? You bet. But I also like not being frozen icicle right now on my rig. So Mississippi's fantastic.
Right. I know we could be in the middle of a snowstorm in Canada right now, but I'll take complaining about it being cold this morning in Florida.
Right. In Florida. Florida cold.
That Florida cold gets you every time. Okay. So we talked about general how your story started. We didn't touch on, though, from selling, getting the RV, to what have you done between getting the RV to now? What's been your journey from there till now?
Oh man, we've done 46 states.
Ooh, nice.
We did the first, we did this in segments. The first year we went from July to December was like, we went from Virginia to Texas in June, and Texas to Montana, back to Virginia, back to Texas in that time frame.
That was, we were moving really fast. We had a 13-year-old at the time who wasn't keen on the idea of traveling and being away from her friends, leaving everything that she had known. And so we had compromised with, okay, we'll get you to this event and we'll get you back to this, things that were going to happen. So we had to make some of those stops to get back around. And then we had decided to have the baby, Ella, in Texas. And so we needed to be back there, 6 weeks to a month before due date to make that happen.
Why Texas?
Oh, we thought it would be warmer than Virginia.
-4 for a week.
Oh my gosh.
Because we were trying to, let's do it near one family or the other so we have some help with the older kids. And well, Texas in January is typically warmer than Virginia in January.
Yeah.
Typically.
That didn't work out for us.
No, it was like 60 degrees in Virginia and it was -4.
But it did work out for you.
Yeah, it worked out.
It all worked out.
Yeah, we were averaging about 3 days a stop. Was probably our average. We didn't stay we had several points. We had to be in Colorado to pick up solar. The other thing we did early on is we prioritized people over places. So the way some people chase national parks, we chased full-time families. And we'll get into this and it'll be controversial. We're not Thousand Trails people, but that meant we had to be incredibly intentional. So I am the voice on our Instagram channel because I am an extrovert. Lorianne?
I'm not.
So unfortunately, that means, as people have figured out, I'm talking to a lot of guys' wives.
Yes.
But what we do is we share the Instagram account. She watches every conversation, and it is about trying to figure out who's our people and when can we all meet up as families.
I love that sometimes I never know who I'm talking to. Like sometimes it might be Lorianne answering, sometimes it might be you.
It is 95% of the time me. So that was our first trip to Montana, was to meet up with a family that had just got off the road, who have become some
Oh,
of our dear friends, and one of Gracie's best friends. So finding teenagers, that was a
yeah.
big deal for us. Finding people that Gracie could engage with. And we had our Mount Rushmore of people that we watched early on, like the Hoopers, Home with the Hoopers, and the Van Dynes, and several others. I won't get into all the accounts names, but like, they're not the big accounts, but they're the people we learned from at the time. And it was important for us to, like, is this real? Are you real? Is it really what we want this to be? And finding out, yeah, these are our people. And we've been to the Hoopers now, their ranch, 4 times,
4 times.
I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And every time it's just like picking up where you left off. So yeah, that was our first year. The second year, after having Ella, we circumnavigated the United States in a year. And by circumnavigated, I mean we touched every state on the edge of the United States.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over the Midwest that year, but we left Texas and headed through Arizona, New Mexico, up through California.
Oregon, Washington, Idaho,
Oh, we
Montana.
barely touched Oregon, Washington. We just kind of skirted through the corner of those states
They
on
may
our
have.
way to Idaho.
Why again?
Oh, they were threatening shutdowns again, and we weren't going to deal with that again.
No.
So we touched them, checked them off the list. We'd like to go back and visit, more in depth, but yeah.
Then we went across. My business partner volunteers at the Oshkosh Air Show, so that's where we finally met up with the Van Dynes also.
Mm-hmm.
And that developed a great friendship there with the three families. It was kind of funny. One of the things I do, and I really think God put me here to do, is build community. And it was funny. We were the pivot point between the two families. They didn't know each other, and now those two families are way closer than I would say even we are to either of those two families. And that's fine. It doesn't hurt our feelings. They're a good fit. And but we did that there for like 12 days. That was one of the longest places we had been in a while. But we slowed down that year. Definitely, we started averaging probably 5 to 6 days. And our vision was, what would normally be one, let's turn to two. What would normally be three, let's turn to five. And we would just slow down a little bit. And then our last year, we launched also from Texas, and we went straight up to Montana with the vision of buying land. And we slowed down. We spent 6 weeks in the Black Hills. We spent 4 weeks in Wyoming, and we spent 4 months in Montana. And then we'll talk later about the mad dash to get out of there, where we almost died. But so yeah, we've circumnavigated. We've done the middle. The only thing we have not touched is Utah and Nevada.
Really?
But that's on our list. Just scheduling hasn't worked.
That's interesting. I can't believe you haven't touched that yet. But then again, there's like, being everywhere that you've gone, it's shocking that maybe not so much Nevada, but Utah is like one of the go-to states for travel alongside Montana, with all of those canyons and mountain sightseeing spots.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to go this winter, was our vision, was to go down that way and go to Arizona after Texas. But the Ashes got the house, and they are let's put it this way. They are the people that if something happened, when we went to Mexico for a trip, we put a will together that if we die, they get our kids. I mean, we met somebody on the road for less than a year, and that's who gets our kids. That's how the relationship is. So we came this way, and it just felt like the right thing to do. And so Utah lost again. People over places every time.
That's right. It worked out.
That's right.
That's amazing. Now, so you guys have been doing this for pushing 3 years. At what point along the way did you know this was the right path, that you chose the right thing?
I think it was in our first few months of travel, again, after leaving the East Coast and, the craziness that was going on with lockdowns and everything, and getting out to small town Idaho. I had gone to the grocery store. We had pulled in, I think we were staying there 1 or 2 nights. Just, it was like a 1 or 2 night stop on the way to somewhere else. I had run to the grocery store and saw that there was a high school football game about to start. And that was something that like everything had been shut down all along the way. That was something we were looking forward to on our travels, was let's hit minor league sports games, let's hit colleges, high school sports. We enjoy, our family enjoys all sports, but we enjoy the lower level sports.
People are just having a good time, not production.
And that was something that we had missed out on for that first summer. I guess this was probably September. So I went back and I said, hey, I know we weren't going to do this tonight. We were going to like sit down and watch a movie. It was a Friday night. And
it was hot. We had just come off of 2 weeks boondocking in the Tetons. Yeah.
But everybody was like, yeah, let's go. And so we did. And we went there and we sat with hundreds of people in this high school football stadium where nobody cared about
anything,
social distancing or anything like that. And it just felt like, okay, like we are not the only weird ones on this planet. And, it doesn't need to be what it has been. So it kind of felt like, I don't know, this is where we belong, is on the road, out west, small towns, whatever you want to, label that as, the place where we belong. In that first stretch, I too feel like we saw our kids grow a lot closer together.
Oh yeah.
And just enjoy each other's company. And there's always the bickering and fighting, but seeing them, just grow closer together and bond more.
Yeah, little side story. The game we went to watch was, I'm gonna get the towns wrong, but it was like the Sugar Salem Diggers versus the Shelly Spuds. Russets. Yeah, like we're in Idaho.
Yep.
Like, all right,
that's amazing.
So,
and that was in 2020, like fall of 2020.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Nobody died. I'd just like to point out.
Right?
I mean, we all made it through.
We did.
There were old people there. Nobody died. It was fantastic.
Yeah. That was probably one of our stopping factors too, was seeing in Texas when we got there. We pulled over to the side of the road and had to pick our jaws up because we saw this packed stadium for football at a high school. And we were just astonished because at home, we were now going into our second summer of no sports, which is just what, and winter, of course, but just the second season of no sports, to then drive, a couple of hours, of course, away, that they're just living life as normal and cheering and having fun and doing their sporting thing. Yes. And it's wild.
Like I would have probably known we were doing the right thing without COVID at all. Because again, watching our kids meeting, I think for me, it was a combination of watching my kids develop a friendship in a way that they had never at home. And not that we didn't facilitate that, we did, but this was another level of care that we watched happen. Yeah. And then me and us meeting people, boy, I gotta be careful who will listen to this. We have people in our lives that I'm close to, and we have people in our lives that she's close to, but to find family after family that we enjoy together is something that is just jaw-dropping. Like you mentioned, like, man, this is real. It felt like we were in search of Mayberry. If nobody knows what that is, Andy Griffith. We wanted that little small town feel, and the only place we could find it was on the road. And
that community where you could send your kids out to play and they come home for dinner
and dirty, tired, and happy.
And we found that on the road. We didn't have that in our neighborhood in Virginia. It was mostly older people. Our kids were about the only kids on the street.
Things we've not done in the last 3 years. We have not scheduled play dates, attended practices, gone to school functions, and our kids have been more social, more fun, more tired than they have ever been. And it was awesome. So that was kind of the biggest things for me on the front that she's talking about. And just when we found out while we were out west, we were talking to one of our family members back east and about a restaurant. Like, man, we really missed the restaurant. Have y'all been in there to eat? And they're like, no, the lobby's still closed. I'm like, what? The dining room is still closed? Only order out? I'm like, I will never go there again. because that's what those people were. That's when we realized we're never going back. We love the place. We'll visit. Like we might be going there when we buy this business, and things have come back to normal-ish, but it's never going to be the same. And now I know who those people are. Like I found out who's on my team.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and who are the non-player characters.
So when you look back through these last few years, what would you say were some of the fears or challenges that you faced, and how did you get through them?
Yeah, I would maybe say uncertainties, just of not knowing, like we already mentioned, like what is this going to look like, because this is not how we envisioned starting our journey, was, post COVID. So those uncertainties of how is this going to work out. I'm trying to think if there was anything else major. Maybe, being pregnant on the road and, not doing the standard, oh, you see this doctor from, beginning to end of your journey. We did that unconventionally as well. But again, going into it with, well, it's all going to work out. Somehow, somewhere, I'm going to have a baby and somebody will have to deliver it.
Biggest challenges, I had pulled trailers before, but I'd never pulled a fifth wheel before. I was like, but it's going to work out. Pretty quick. This became an extension of us. Not to put any pressure on everybody else, but we've never had an argument backing up a trailer.
Although sometimes I do forget that he can hear me through our backup camera.
But I think the biggest thing was like, what happens if something happens to me physically on the road? I'm concerned about that, and I did. I got my knee hurt playing airsoft with some people down in Alabama one time, and I couldn't walk for a week very well, but we found a way to make it work and hobble along, and the kids helped. That helps having two girls who can do a lot of the stuff that she can do, and that's her to do some of the stuff that I do, and I fudged enough to make it work. Or a bad accident where we lost everything, and that came pretty close this last trip. We lost our trailer brakes. They froze, we think, in Montana. We don't know what happened. They didn't work leaving. And so we only had the front brakes, which those were pretty sketchy. I had to replace those when we got to Texas, and they were, let's tell you, that they destroyed the caliper also, which the fact that worked is pretty impressive. And we were driving on ice. And so one day on our way down from Bozeman to Montana, the next part of the trip, I'll just say, trying to get to Wyoming, we were sliding on the ice, and the embankments were about 20 feet drops down the sides. And we're going through mountain passes on ice. And she look, it's getting darker and darker and colder and colder. The girl's room was 30 degrees inside the room. And we're like, because we're facing blistering winds on the front of the trailer, and it was I think it was like 4 outside, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd already had blowout that day, and I changed that tire in 1.5 feet of snow, and on the trailer. So it's one of those days, and this is one of the things we had worried about. What happens? Well, we decided, you know what? As much as we want to get to power, and we'd booked a place that had power so we could try to stay warm, I think we can't make it there. And we pulled off. There was a Love's on the left side of the highway as we were heading south, but I had to cross a bridge, and I hit my brakes to slow down for the bridge, and we just kept moving. And so I just drifted to the right, and we pulled into the sketchiest of sketch truck stop parking lots that was just covered in 4 inches of ice, and slid to a stop and said, guys, this is where we're sleeping tonight.
And we're not sure how long we're going to stay here either, because we didn't know what the roads were going to look like the next morning.
And we hunted for chains for about 2 hours that morning. The road opened up enough to go, okay, we didn't have to put them on, but it got sketchy for another 3 hours south of that if we had gone through that night, we would have been in a ditch somewhere. Broken truck, broken trailer, the whole bit. There was zero chance we could have made it. So we were really glad we made the decision we did. And I think that's been one of the things is I'm going down the road. She's my navigator. And this is one of those things you just love about your spouse, but you don't always tell them. We're driving down the road. Go, man, I'm worried. She'll start looking and go, there's a such and such up ahead on the right, and this is what we can have. This is what the reviews are. And she gives me all this data to make decisions. We're driving down the road, and I see something interesting on the side. that town, that sounds interesting. What happened there? 5 minutes later, I'm going to get a little Wikipedia article read to me, and I love that. It's made our journey fun, and
Yeah.
it's like having the best support staff, friend, partner. I read Lewis Lamore books growing up, and they always talked about wanting a strong woman to ride the river with. Well, I got it. It's just a road, not a river.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
I'd rather the road than the river.
Well, and the rig doesn't float, so there's that.
What would you say was a wow moment along your journey? Now, I'm sure there's different ones for each of you, so I'd love to hear separately.
Probably, I knew Lorianne. We have a term in our family because we try not to curse a lot called bad apples. And I don't mean that in the common sense. That means the other thing. Like you're pretty bad apples, man.
Oh,
And
nice. Yeah.
I knew she was a tough, capable woman. But when we took Ella, who was 6 months old, up a hike with the Van Dynes and the Hulls that was supposed to be an intermediate to hard hike, but really turned out to be scrambling up a waterfall for 5 hours. And we had to have help getting down, and the baby slept most of the way down. Like, we had these moments where we've done things like looking at each other at the end of it. Did we just do what I think we just did? Um, I mean, from getting a rig up to upper view in the Tetons, having only pulled it for 2.5 months, it's a hurricane of a road. But getting into spots we had no place getting into, calling the cops and going, hey, I'm about to get into this spot. I'm going to be shutting down traffic. Do you want to be here to do that? Or do you want me to do that?
Oh
We've
my
done
gosh.
really crazy stuff along the way. It has been full of adventure. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot of wow moments for me.
Now, can you pinpoint anywhere along the way that was very pivotal for you guys? That was like, okay, this is it. There's no going back. I'm a different person now.
Probably the first time we went back to Virginia
Mm,
and we tried to reconnect, and it was different. It
yeah.
just was different. And like we were changed. We were these adventurers, freedom fighters, whatever you want to call it. Freedom fighters may be a heavy-handed word. But we we changed. And by that I mean became more confident in who we had always been, and we're not afraid of the fight, and we didn't back down, and we said things that probably offended people. And I've had people in my life tell me recently, you're not as crazy as I thought you were. um, I mean, and like when we hit the road, I have friends in my life who are mechanics and an RV to wherever, and they thought this soft little sales guy, there's no chance. This is going to be a disaster. To see, I mean, I've done a lot of work on our truck. I've done a lot of work on a rig. I've become a mechanic, an electrician, a plumber. I've done stuff I would never have dreamed, 20 years ago that I would have done. And so we are those people now. We are those adventurers and lean into the suck people in ways that has made us so much better, made our kids stronger. Um, Cora, the fact that if nobody knows, we have of our children, we have Gracie, who is our musician, artist, creative brain. She's done open mic nights in multiple states. She's done, Teen Pact, speaking in front of people at the state capitals multiple times. I mean, she's written 3 books. I mean, she is this very capable, strong, beautiful woman. Cora is the one who will knife you in the ribs in New York City if you look at her wrong. I mean, she is tough. But the fact that we've made it this far without her dying, doing some dare-defying, death-defying feat.
or even being injured badly.
I mean, she
We have
fell.
Go
Go ahead.
ahead.
She fell off a tree from 20 feet in Glacier because she tried to
Mm.
run up a tree that was like at an angle. And I said, be careful. As she turned around and me, said, what? And fell. And my heart plummeted because there were sticks everywhere pointing up. And she fell right
Oh
between
no.
all of them, lands on her feet, got nervous
Wow.
and scared, but then was fine and ready to go again. It's, but this is the little girl that at 7 slid tackle a varsity boys player on a scrimmage. So
Oh my goodness.
yeah, but I
Tough
think we're
cookie.
amazed that we've got her out of here alive.
So that's two of them. What about the others?
So Dirk is our little engineer. he likes to create things, build things. He wants a shop so bad. He likes everything from Legos to, like, we do daddy and daughter dates and dad and son hangouts pretty, whenever we can. And for his was to go to a maker space and we made a knife, you know. He likes to do hands-on creative things with stuff.
He's
It-
Yeah.
always he's full of ideas and things
especially
that
at
would be amazing to invent and stuff like
especially
that.
at 6:37 in the morning before your first cup of coffee is gone.
Oh, he
Hmm.
hasn't taken apart your coffee maker yet, though, has he?
He has wanted to.
Yeah.
He wants to take apart anything that was broken
Mhm.
and figure out how it works. Yep, that's him.
Yeah.
He's an amazing little mind and the best big brother. I told him the other day, and I had his sisters chime in on this. He is an amazing big brother to Ella. Plays with her, loves on her, takes care of her. And I said, dude, let me tell you something from an old man. And the sisters, y'all chime in if you think I'm wrong. If you keep doing this, when you're 18 and she's 9, 10, if other girls see how you are with her, you will have no problem. They won't care what you drive or what you wear. You'll be just fine. And they're like, yes.
It's so
So
true.
keep this up. Keep this up. These are
That's
the things
right.
that matter.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Now, how would you say this journey has then changed your family going forward?
I think so Gracie and Cora played on the same soccer team, and Gracie was very gracious about that. It was her friend. So Cora has played up and been around older kids. She's 13, but she's really like a 16-year-old. She acts like a 16-year-old, talks like a 16-year-old. She is not her age. And Gracie was always very gracious of that. But even though they've become good friends, their interests have diverged and they have supported each other in their interests. And but it's okay to go apart and have different friends. So that's one thing that's been fun to watch is each one, like Cora started doing CrossFit in Montana and started developing her own friendships, and Gracie has her friendships, and that's healthy. We always wanted to do things together as families. When we come here to the Ashes, ask the kids which one's your favorite, and they all look at each other. All of them. So that they still do that too. So they're flexible,
Yeah.
and that makes us
Oh,
happy.
good.
But um, the kids are figuring out more of who they are. Gracie did not want to do this when we hit the road, but was gracious and said, like, look, I don't want to be the reason we don't if everybody else wants to. So she was very gracious about it. But then we'll tell you, she's really glad that we did. It helped her grow. Um, but now she's ready. She has a job in Montana that they're patiently waiting for her to get back for. And she loves it. She loves the people there. And yeah, it's just, we're growing, starting to find, getting into the rhythms of watching teenagers spread their wings a little bit and figuring out who they are. I'm trying to practice what I preach a little bit. I've talked to parents who have a harder time parenting than some things seem to be. Because I had amazing parents, and not everybody was gifted that. And so things I try to share with them, I need to also practice. And one of those was when a baby, when Ella started to walk, she fell down a lot, and I didn't get mad. It's cute. She's learning. By the same token, when kids start becoming adults, they fall down a lot. It's just different, and you got to work at not being embarrassed or work at being mad. The problem is those fall downs can be pretty life altering, and so the goal is to walk beside them and pick them back up and make sure they learn how to walk, not get mad at them for having fallen. So trying to navigate that with kids who are trying to find their own way. Make sure they know where our fences are, but the gate's open for them to build their own fence within reason. They don't have to stay in my fence. I didn't stay in my parents' fence, but it was definitely the same type of fence. In other words, Chuck Swindoll had this phrase that I really liked that was shared with me by a guy named Brett. In the essentials, unity. In the non-essentials, liberty. And in all things, love.
Mm.
And that's a really good thing for us for our family to keep remembering to use, not just in theological conversations, but also in our family. There's certain things
Yeah.
non-negotiable, but the things that are negotiable, I have to be okay with that they're different than what I want.
Wow. I don't have a follow-up on that. That's really good, though. On that note, what would you say this has done for your marriage?
I'll sit back and listen.
I mean, I think it's just further cemented, what we were already doing, in stationary life. It's like we said earlier, we work together as a team really well. I'm trying to think if there's anything.
Do you want me to give them just a brief synopsis of the origin story?
I don't know.
So we have a unique situation. Everybody's situation is unique, but ours is a little more so. So Lorianne was a widow at 18. She got married in how long?
6 weeks.
6 weeks into her first marriage. Her husband fell at a job site and hit his head on concrete and had to go to the hospital and was there for 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And she had to make the call to pull the plug. And I was I'll be nice to myself, a late bloomer. I did not get serious about my faith, about work ethic, about the things who I am really in my heart, the discipline and all that stuff until a little later in life. And so I also was I wanted something specific. If I was going to get married, I wanted it to be something specific or not at all. And so I waited. So I was in my I was almost 30. I was 2 weeks from 30 when we got married. And we're a fair bit apart. And I saw that she was strong. And so we went into our marriage early on more out of gratitude than expectation. It was not, hey, I've got this life, add wife, stir, keep moving. No, I had done everything I could to make myself happy and failed. And so I was so excited to have somebody in my life. I didn't leave her on Saturdays to go play golf for 5 hours. I was like, woohoo, I got this friend that hangs out with me all the time. This is fantastic. We have been married coming up on 18 years this year, and we have never had a yelling, screaming fight. That is not normal. And I will go ahead and say that is not the expectation. But our situation is definitely unique. And I don't recommend people go through the trauma that she went through or the long delay that I did and to get to where we did. But I think it definitely impacted it. We are a team. And we take the roles God gave us very seriously. That, like, one of the phrases I teach my kids, my view on how I think of her. There's a movie Ginger Rogers did with Fred Astaire where they're dancing in this room and they're spinning and dancing and dancing. If anybody don't know, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers were like this amazing dancing couple in the 40s film era. If you look up, I forget what it is. Just look up them dancing. You'll get the idea. But they were spinning and spinning and they go up over this table and chairs and down the other way. And I asked everybody, who's the better dancer? And everybody says, oh, Fred Astaire. I'm like, mm-mm. She's doing everything he's doing backwards and in heels. But he's leading. Because if he doesn't, that's chaos. And so she is smarter than I am. She is incredibly capable. She's strong. She's got all these features that are great. But I have a job God gave me, and my job is to go do that in sacrificial service, not like I want her to feel free to do the things that she needs to do and empowered to do the things she wants to do. My job is to do all the things she doesn't. One of those is talk to people on the phone and make decisions. Yeah, this has made all the things we did just turn up to 11. And it's been awesome. We've had fun together. We've laughed together. We've been frustrated together. The RV life gives you a lot of opportunities to fix things, and she's my right-hand man when that comes about. Researching stuff, looking on forums, talking to people on forums, because that's not a voice. And we work amazing together. We work great with our kids together. It's not me versus her ever. And this has just made that even more so.
So now you touched a lot on some of the hurdles you guys have come across. What would you say are some of the pretty major highs and lows that you've had on this journey. I'd love to start with the lows so we can finish on the high. But what stands out as your lowest low?
I don't know if it's the lowest low, but I will say when we did finally get COVID, which wasn't until this last summer,
Mm.
doing it while boondocking at 8,800 feet maybe not have been the wisest course of action, or it made us stronger. I'm not sure which, but we uh
At least we were by ourselves.
we were by ourselves.
Yeah.
And grizzly
Yeah.
bears. We saw grizzly bears while we were there.
Low points, I think, would always have to do with waiting on other people to do what they were supposed to do. Whether that was waiting for our truck to get the extra seat put in, and feeling stuck. Like we have no other options. We can't go anywhere. Or things at campgrounds not being very, very far from ideal situations. We've had a few of those. Not a lot, but we've had a few.
So, again, I said before, we're not Thousand Trails people. We probably do we wanted to do a lot of boondocking, and I think we probably do a pretty even split between campground, boondock, and mooch dock. We mooch dock a lot. We've had 5 different friends put in 50 amp service for us. That's a big part of, again, people over places. Having good friends helps. We designed our experience around the fact that when we pull up from a campground, we don't know where we're going that night. We do not book in advance. Probably the low was when we did try to become a Thousand Trails member, and we were furious at the way we were treated. We were furious at the experience of the camera. This is in California, not one of the Florida places. And just the way, well, if you do this, then, if you do that, then there's a reason they don't let you buy Thousand Trails member in South Dakota, or if you're a resident of South Dakota or another one. We had to fudge it to get in, use my parents' address in Texas, because their consumer protection laws are much stronger than the other 48 states. I had to do a lawsuit to get our money back, even though we followed their rules of not having been in for more than 2 days. I did not care for that organization. I know that's where a lot of the cool people are. Like, we have a lot of friends that love their Thousand Trails experiences in Florida and in different places, but that was just not us.
Well, I think just part of it is we do not plan out that far in advance. We knew we were going to spend, a decent portion of the winter in Texas this year. But as to exact dates, we didn't have that nailed down until, a couple weeks before we left Montana. And so we don't plan that far in advance, which has served us well in a good number of situations where we pull into a spot thinking, oh, we'll be here a night or two and then we'll continue on. And we really like the area and we end up staying 5 days or a week and a half or something like that.
When we met the Ashes, we were going to meet them for Thanksgiving last year for the first time to meet them. And the first week into it, I realized we're not done. So we could stay another week because we had nothing we had to cancel. Literally, when we drive, pack up, get in the car and drive, my kids don't know where we're going because we don't know where we're going. We know the direction we're going, but we have no idea where we're spending the night that night. And we have never wally docked once.
Really?
But again, having systems upon backup systems, we have solar. We're using solar right now because we got to work on the electrical system here at the Ashes. We've got a generator. We've got the propane on board. And we've got 2 extra things of propane in the back of the truck, and we've designed our life to allow us maximum flexibility. And when things impede that flexibility, that's probably our lowest lows.
Mm-hmm.
It frustrates us because that's not who we are. And serendipity is a big part of our life, being nimble and flexible. And when things feel rigid, either by schedule or somebody holding us back, it chafes pretty heavy.
So if you've never wally docked, where do you stay along the way if you don't have a campground or a BLM spot? Where do you pull over?
We're big fans of Boondockers Welcome, which is now a part of Harvest Host. We use those a lot. We definitely got our money back from that. We use one of the passports. I think there's two that use the same basic name, but we use those maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times a year.
What, like Passport
Passport
America?
America.
Which those are still, that's a campground that you're
Yeah,
paying for a small,
usually
$20,
garbage
$30,
campgrounds.
something
To
like
be
that.
honest, um, but we'll pull in places that are random parking lots. We pulled into a parking lot. We've pulled into places that don't say no camping and are not part of BLM on roadsides. There was one in California. We were overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and nobody said we couldn't stay there, and we were there for a week.
Oh my goodness. That
It
wasn't
It
a
was one of
whoopsie
the
overnight.
it was just like a little gravel pull off, and most of them had signs posted that said no overnight camping, and this one didn't. And so we
Huh.
took a chance and we pulled in, and a couple other RVs pulled in after we were there and stayed a night or two, and nobody
Cops came by. How
nobody
y'all
bothered
doing?
us.
Just left. So
Wow.
we ask for forgiveness more than permission usually.
Hmm.
We've never had to move in the night, have we?
No.
No.
But we've done like other parking lot stays, like you said.
Casino
We've
parking
done,
lots.
yeah, casinos or Cabela's.
Last night we stayed at a sports complex. It was a baseball sports complex that put in RV spots for travel teams. Well, guess what? It's February. Nobody's traveling right
Oh,
now. So we pulled
yeah.
in there and enjoyed that for the night.
And we've done fairgrounds too. A lot of fairgrounds
Oh,
have
I heard that
power
one.
poles.
the Tallahassee Fairgrounds has like 400 power poles, and if there's not an event there, you have the place to yourself. That's where I did packed my bearings on my trailer tires last year. So
Of course you did.
Some of them are free and some of them are, minimal charge, but you've
Yeah.
usually got power and water.
um,
Wow.
there's a lot of free places to park, and
Yeah.
sometimes you get to do it with friends, which is even better. Oh, like at Stowe, Vermont, we we almost the closest we ever got to kicking out. We're in Stowe, Vermont at um,
Ski
the
resort.
ski resort overflow parking for their staff. Well, there's no ski resort when we were there because there was no snow. Day 5, they come up that we were planning on hooking up and leaving. And they're like, you could leave if you wanted to, right? And we're like,
That's so funny. Out of everywhere that you guys have gone, which has been your favorite individually? I'd love to know each of your favorite spots that you've been, whether it was the location or the spot that you stayed. So it could be your favorite city or state or area, and then the favorite spot that you've camped. I know it's a big Rolodex to go through.
Yeah.
I just realized probably some people don't know what a Rolodex is.
no, I know, no, I'm just going, yeah, it's we when you figure we were doing a lot of times where we were 3 night here, 1 night there,
Yeah.
a lot. Like, well,
Yep.
places.
One of our favorite spots was a one-nighter. It was a one-nighter, and in California, of all places. It was our favorite spot, and sure enough, it's the spot that everybody's asking for photos from, so but it was stunning.
We've got it was great to do the overlook in the Tetons, the overview or whatever it's called, upper view. It's closed to our size rigs. We can't do it anymore. It's only 30 something feet and down, I think now. Some idiot probably got stuck.
Oh, it's very, very high traffic in the summer too. So I
Yeah.
think they're trying to minimize the number of people.
So upper view was in the Tetons, and it's this upper view, where you have this whole view unobstructed of the entirety of Teton Park, and it's just stunning to be able to drop my back gate down and work. That was my office, just like the entrepreneurs. That was like, we did it, type moment. We also really, really enjoyed that spot in California. That was pretty cool as far as a boondocking spot. The Badlands continues to just make, I would never want to live there, but the Badlands, watching the sunrise there is just like a pretty cool moment. The weather, though, is always iffy. We have never stayed, in my opinion, in an RV park that just made me go, oh, this is amazing. We've been to some really cool ones, but what I picture in my mind Partially it's because we'll never pay for the ones, or the other part of it is the ones that I think of, wow, that'd be amazing. They've got 600 lots and there's too many people. So I kind of struggle on that one a little bit.
Well, I think as far as a favorite spot, it would have to be a boondocking spot.
Mm-hmm.
The Tetons, probably.
Like, as much as I love Montana, we've not had any of our parking spots in Montana be amazing.
Mm-mm.
But the area there is. And so that's one of the things we would love to do is have a spot for other people to come have an amazing experience up there. We don't want to have an RV park, but we definitely want to be still a part of the community.
Just a hosting spot that you can have
Yeah.
friends pop in. You don't necessarily need to join Harvest Hosts or something, but
Mm-mm.
you can have a spot for friends to pop over.
Yep.
And say, hey, check out all this awesome here.
Well, and I would say that Montana's probably our favorite. Hang on,
Mm-hmm.
our favorite spot. But surprisingly, upstate New York would be my second favorite state, if you will. Not the whole state, but upstate New York was so beautiful, and that was one area that we thought we would kind of zip through and spend a couple nights as we made our way through to Vermont and Maine, and we stayed a couple, probably 3 weeks in New York, and we did not picture ourselves doing that at all.
So little thing people don't realize is Boondockers Welcome may say 5 days, but if the people really like you and ask you to stay, we stayed 10 days before.
Wow.
Now I may have tiled their entryway. And we may have been invited into their basement to play darts and
that's
ping
great.
pong and whatever else, but yeah, we've enjoyed meeting the people there too. There's a place in Montana. It's a wedding venue that this lady during COVID goes, I'm getting a lot more Harvest Host action than I am wedding venues, so I'm going to have a Harvest Host that if you want to pay $25 to stay the night, or $30, whatever it is, you can stay longer if you want, a little bit, but you can't stay there permanently because when there's a wedding, she blocks off all the dates. So it keeps her from having problems. The views are stunning, and deer hang out on her, beautiful green grass and cool picture settings, giant fountain thing, just gorgeous.
And it's set up, kind of like an RV park you've got the RV
area.
slots and power and water.
No sewer.
But it's not an RV park.
And
it's beautiful.
Her neighbor has built himself a little 9-hole golf course that he encourages you to come on his property and play golf. And so we did that a little bit. We were recovering from COVID and just needed to move. And so she and I went out and played golf.
Nice.
So
nice.
It was fun.
Now I just have to back it up a minute. You touched on Northern New York, which is like part of the Appalachians, depending on who you are. Have you gone to the UP in Michigan?
Yeah, Sault Ste. Marie. Yep, that's another place we.
I was going to say, would you compare the two? Because we haven't been to the UP of Michigan, but everything that I've seen is very much like home. But upstate New York is so much like home, and home being Ontario.
I would say the Upper Peninsula to me was not near as pretty. By pretty, I mean what people have done to it. Upstate New York, with all the Amish farms, it was clean and crisp. Yeah. And if there was any state that needed to carve off a section, it's New York. New York needs to make New York City like Washington, D.C. is a district. It needs to be its own district. Because upstate New York, the people were amazing.
Yeah.
They were friendly. They were outgoing. They're good people.
Farmers, the small towns in upstate New York are just thriving, unlike some of the small towns, down in Texas or out west that have kind of been like oil towns and they've kind of just faded away and there's almost nothing there anymore. So we enjoyed the small town feel of the thriving little downtowns that still have old-fashioned candy stores and toy stores and things like that.
I think one of the things we learned about ourselves through this is just how little we care for over 100,000 strong cities. We just don't. That's not who we are. We don't care. I remember the first time coming across into Minnesota, like, whoa, traffic. Like it had been so long since we had seen traffic. They were like, oh, only part of this. And yeah, that's what we like, small and intimate and friendly. And what we found is it doesn't really matter what state in the union you're in. Wherever you find small towns where people work with their hands and don't have so much money that they don't know what to do with themselves, that
You'll find good
you'll
people.
find good people. And that has been heartwarming for me. The silent majority that we're out there, only we're getting a lot less.
Yeah. I agree. When we did our tour from leaving Ontario down to Texas, we went out to California. I'm like, oh, this is going to be worse than Ontario. And it wasn't outside of
Mm-mm.
the cities. Well, even in
Yeah,
the major cities, we're still not as bad as Ontario,
right.
but at the time. But we found that even in like Riverside, California,
Oh yeah.
it was not as bad as LA. And that's still a pretty major city. We could go in and out of everywhere and not have any issue.
There are real people everywhere.
There are.
There are people, real people everywhere. You know, I grew up. I grew up as the weirdo in school because our family didn't do certain things, or we were more careful in certain areas, and so I got used to being the black sheep. That is a mantle we have worn with pride over the time. It's made this really easy. You know what? Just like other things, we're not dead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the ice storm, when we were stuck in Texas with the ice storm 2 years ago, we had more RV friends checking in on us than family and friends from, prior to RV life. Even ones that knew what was going on. We had people, RV friends checking in with us every day. How are y'all doing? Are you staying warm?
I just love that in this community, you have so much support and so many friends that you can rely on so quickly. I
Hmm.
remember we were at a location and I had just met in person some friends that I had talked to online for a few months. And within 3 days, I was babysitting their kids
Hmm.
because you know somebody so quickly
Mm-hmm.
and you get, I hate the word vibe, but you get that feeling from them. They're trustworthy people. They know what this life is like. They like, you just build that trust so much faster in this community
Yep.
when it's
Well,
right.
in RV life, we're transient. We go in and out of each other's
Yeah.
lives. So we
Yeah.
don't have the time for the first 7 stages of friendship. Where do you go to
Yeah.
church? What do you drive? What events do your kids in? What are you wearing? We don't care. We're in slippers and baggy t-shirts, and we haven't showered in 3 days, and we're all in the same boat. So we go right
That's
into.
right.
So what do you think about this X, Y, and Z? That would be you wouldn't dare talk about those topics to a
Oh,
random stranger. And when you go, all
yeah.
right, you're my people. Game on. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then you can
Let's
get
go.
down to the meat, and we're not on milk anymore. We're into meat,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that changes things. The
Yeah.
vibe is funny too. You can get a vibe on Instagram and be right most of the time. There are times when Instagram isn't going to Instagram, and it's not that.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
not going to say names,
No,
but
and you
we've
don't
met
need to.
some that we've met some that are just Instagram, and we're
Yeah.
not going. My kids will go, "Can we not meet them again?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. But
but I
same
think,
thing. Then you know quickly they're not your people and
yep,
you can be
Mm-hmm.
civil and be polite and hey, how's it going? We're in the same place. Cool. And then we move on. And it's
we
I
have
love
had
that.
people around a campfire tell us stuff that they have not told family, that they have not
Yeah.
told their kids.
Yep.
Just you're in the weeds with them quick, and I love that.
Yep.
Because honestly, you think about, you're a believer. You think about how the different ways to worship. Used to worship meant you went to church, you sing songs, you pray, somebody gives a message, and you maybe sing another song, whatever, and you pray again, and everybody's gone, and everybody goes and does whatever they want to do. Worship is a lot different than that. Worship can be painting someone's house, helping them move. Worship can be doing a deep Bible study with somebody. Worship is a lot of different things. One of those things for me is getting into deep, intimate conversations with people who are either going to encourage you or be encouraged by you, and not fluff.
Yeah. So you were made for this because this is the life where you don't deal with all the fluff. There is no fluff conversation.
There's no fluff.
Yeah.
There's
You
no
go to
fluff.
So what? How are you healing your kids? Warts on there without going to the doctor.
Right?
Oh, this is what I've been into.
No, basically, how are you living life differently?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
are you, what do you do outside the box on this, and
Yeah.
this?
What skills do you have that I could use or learn from?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I
So,
love that it's not, for some, it's still a vanity life, that they need to have the vanity of RV life. And again, those are the Instagrammers that we avoid. But there are those who are just, like you said, they're about the experiences, they're about the people, they're about.
I'm getting concerned a little bit as we start to exit. It seems like that number is increasing. The other number is decreasing as they get off. And that,
I mean, the reasons for people doing it is different. It comes in different stages of, why are people doing it?
we've made the friends of our lives that will probably be our friends for a long, long time in this. And not just the family we're with, but we got families across the country that I want to stay in touch with for the rest of my life.
Pretty amazing. That is a really good takeaway for doing this.
Problem with the RV life is that sometimes we play chase and we never make connection. You guys need to connect. We need to sit around a campfire. I want to meet Mike for the first time. I talked to you forever, but I've never talked to Mike. So
Mike's. I stopped trying to put him on social because he's not himself. He doesn't talk the same way. He doesn't do, like, he's just a totally different guy as soon as you put a camera in front of his face.
right.
Anyways, we didn't touch on your high. What's been your highest high on the road?
Oh man. Highest high. This is gonna be too spare sounding, but seeing God's creation from Acadia to Glacier to Yosemite to the Badlands, just going, yeah, and he chose me. That's pretty awesome. Just the creation God made, but then all the people, we keep going back, people over places. My word, I can't even begin to say it. We intentionally, back to the Thousand Trails thing, you have to be intentional when you don't do that. You don't have that ready made, just show up.
Community.
And we literally drove hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles to meet up with a family, and hundreds and hundred miles to go this way to meet up with a family. We went out of our way to do that, not to go to places, and it has paid off so much. We met up probably with over 80 families now, 100 families now. We're about to meet up with another one here in the next week or so that we've never met, but we're one of the bigger accounts going right now, and we've got a lot in common. So we're going to make a connection. Although I will say my drive for that is decreasing as I feel ready to build in the areas that we're choosing. The high has definitely been the people and just God talking to us through his beauty. That's been one of the big ones. I love walking through Glacier and the peace of watching the water, the clear, crystal clear water go over, but being invited, people meeting the locals and telling us really cool places to go that are not the big names or the big places, and just sitting and being peaceful. I think the peace has been one of the big things. Adventure is awesome, but being still and knowing that he is God has been a big one. Top that.
Well, I was going to say to people.
I could spend 30 minutes just talking about the cool people that we've met.
I mean, aside from people that are doing the same thing we're doing, traveling with their family, I mean, and not just families with kids. We've met young couples with no kids. We've met single girls traveling. We've met
Taylor.
older couples who full time, boondockers welcome hosts that we stayed in touch with for quite a while after staying at their house, and still kind of think of them every once in a while, reach back out with a text or an email and say, hey, how are y'all doing? Or I don't remember their names off the top of my head, but the older couple that we met in Kansas City at the campground.
Oh, this is a great story.
We had pulled in for a few nights, and I think we had been there one night, and an older couple with a little pop-up camper pulled into the spot next to us. It was a little bit windy, and they were struggling to put up the awning on their camper. So Weldon went out to um, help them. I think you just talked with him just for a minute because he had to keep working. But they came back over later and said that they would like to have us over for s'mores around their fire that night.
You're missing a step in the middle.
Okay, go ahead.
So when she says older, he was 90.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so they and they's like, hey, just warning you in advance, we're going to be meeting another couple over here to practice some singing. Will that bother y'all? Like, what kind of singing? Like, well, we go into old folks' homes and sing hymns and stuff like that. It's not going to bother me at all. In fact, we may come join you. Like, please do. So we went over and sat with them while they sang, and they had beautiful voices.
Mm-hmm.
He could real strong tenor, even at 90. And I'm like, you go into old folks' homes and sing to them. I was like, you like high fiving them on the way out, going, see ya. No, but and it was a great experience. And then like they asked us what she said because they had some tough decisions to make, and they wanted someone to talk to and pray about it because their family wouldn't come see them. We all know why.
Yeah.
They're going to die without you seeing them because you're afraid you're going to kill them. They're just going to die because they don't have another 10 years, you know?
And meanwhile, they weren't afraid. They were getting out and, just living their life and camping and.
Wow.
Their kids, I don't know their kids, but they were morons because these people were adorable.
But yeah, they wanted us to pray with them that night around the fire about them making, decisions on what do we do next. We need to decide if it's a good time to sell our house and move to assisted living, or like where do we go from here. We're getting to a point where they couldn't take care of all of their stuff on their own.
But so, yeah,
there's just so many people that we've met along the way.
We've had the opportunity to serve and be served in really cool ways. Like the people we did the tile for, they didn't really want us to leave. We became family. I mean that seriously. She was battling cancer. They used to RV and they couldn't because she was getting cancer treatments, and they cried when we left. They were adorable. We had so much fun with Bob and Kathy, and the old couple in their 60s, and us with a bunch of little kids, and they loved it. Just that has been one of the coolest things. And my kids being able to talk to anyone, whether they're a child or an adult or an octogenarian, my kids engage and reach out. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Look them in the eye. My kids are doing the things I always thought our kids should do. They're getting some of those chances and getting a chance to serve other people and go do things for people. And it's been awesome experience, top to end. We would not ever look back on this and go, why did we do that? Yeah. You know what? It's going to be hard to buy a house from having a trailer and not much. It's not going to be easy. The timing's got to be right and work's got to be doing well and all the other good stuff. I mean, did I do the right thing financially? Probably not. But I did the right thing. God's going to watch out for us.
Now you touched on a house and slowing down, and you touched on that much earlier. What does the future hold for you guys? What does it look like? I know we don't forecast or anything, but what in general?
You got to have a vision. Without a vision, people perish. So we got to shoot for things. Like the way we've always done our travels is we have anchors. We plan on going to Montana. What does that mean? Don't know. When? Like people ask us, how long are you going to stay with the Ashes? Don't know. But we know we're not going to stay here and live here. So that's our anchor.
That's right.
Right? We're going to be here for a little bit. Yeah. We're going to leave. So I don't know, anchor is we're going to go to Montana, and us and a few other families on Instagram that people may or may not know are looking to find ways to buy together. And so we can buy more acreage, therefore decreasing the cost of each individual acre. And so our vision is to either buy an old house that needs to be fixed up or buy land, put something that we could put this in and winter over in, because I don't want to be out in the elements in the winter. Eventually have our own spot. And our housing for us looks a lot different than it did before.
No, we don't want anything huge.
We don't want a big house anymore because big houses get filled. We like freedom. What I want is the ability to host. Everything else is just going to be extras? Can we have a nice place outside to eat? Designed in a way like think about the ways of your rig. I want a place where I can sit in morning sun and be protected from evening sun. I want a place where I can enjoy winter sun. I want a place that is efficient with the things that you think of that houses that are made on blocks don't get to take into consideration. I want to take into consideration, and I want to be able to share that, whether that be RV spots, small cottages, whatever, a driveway someone to pull into that has 50, whatever. I want to be able to share what is ours with others. And we have a much bigger vision that if we're able to accomplish of reaching out to those in need. I'm not giving into specifics, but people that really need a helping hand, having some families around that have a small cottage on their property, and those people stay there and get taught things like how family's supposed to operate, how to budget, how to finance, how to learn a skill, and then a place to always call home for holidays if they move on and go on about life. I'm not sure what that looks like, but we'd like to come up with something like that.
There's probably somebody out there listening who wants to do exactly what you're doing or similar to what you're doing. How would you inspire them to do this?
Check your heart. Not to pull a John Crist thing. Check your heart. Make sure that you're adventurous, that you're willing to take risk, that you're willing to have things fail spectacularly and grin. Read Rudyard Kipling's If. And if that matches you and that you've got a partner in life, a best friend, wife, husband that is right there with you, then go for it. If you find areas in either any of those accounts lacking, pause and build up what needs to be there. You've got to put emotional investments in before you can make withdrawals. That's you need to make sure your accounts are full. There's a world out there that you don't know exists. There are people you can't imagine how close you're going to be connected to. Let me tell you, when you walk around the United States and see everything that exists, you realize that maybe the places you thought were really important to you aren't as important to you as you would have thought. And the friends that you have aren't really as good of friends as you might would have thought because you've not been exposed to better. So take the chance to expose yourself to something that you might go, this thing I had ranked number 10 is really about a 7. I need to find number 10. And that happens when you find 10. So
wow.
We found it.
Wow. You did. And now you're working on your next mission. When it's ready.
Right. Yep. When the time is right.
That's right. That's right. It'll all work out. That's like the theme. It'll all work out.
That's exactly.
Now, if anybody's looking to find you guys, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
We are not in a lot of places. We just have the Instagram account, but we are thus.stowaways, and that is spelled STOAWAYS, not no W in there. If you're a family out there and you want to connect with teenagers, got good kids, and want to see what we're doing, reach out. We love to talk to people more than we do stuff.
Well, I appreciate this conversation so much. I think there's a lot that others listening will really find as good takeaways, and you dropped some really good books in there, so I'm gonna have to search those up and add some links to the show notes along with your handle should anybody want to find you. I really appreciate this conversation. It really has been awesome to get to know you guys more and your story more. This has been wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these stories, please leave us a review as it helps our podcast reach more listeners. For more information about this podcast, with show notes, links, and more, please go to our website, moresunsetsplease.com. While you're there, let's get connected. We post often on our Instagram and Facebook and share weekly updates through email. Make sure you join the list. But we want to hear from you. If you know of someone with a great story, send an email to info@moresunsetsplease.com and I'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time, keep taking time to enjoy more sunsets, please.